Employment and substance use, alcohol and tobacco in the workplace is the topic that I am talking about for my career project. In 2012, the CDC reported that 50% of American workers drank alcohol on a regular basis, as well as 25% use tobacco products regularly. The stress was linked to discriminations, which created a hostile working environment. Dealing with this discrimination could lead to an increase in substance abuse. Earlier in the semester, we read an article called 40 Years of Income Inequity in America. And in this article, Bowie talked about how there is a hollowing of the middle. And by that, it means that there is becoming less of a gap between the poorer class and the middle class. And because of this, there is great stress dealing with people in the workplace, especially if you don't have an education or a skilled trade. So middle class people are getting stressed out about finding those good jobs to make a decent living because it's a competitive workplace, and people are having to compete to get those better jobs. And as for the poorer class, they're still struggling to earn enough to take care of their families, as well as dealing with workplace discrimination. And usually those poor people are the people who are being discriminated against at the job because of their ethnicity, lack of education, and cultural background. Discrimination comes in all forms. It can consist of treating people badly based on their race, a failure to get a promotion because of your ethnic background, harassment or retaliation for people who complain because they feel that they're treated unfairly. Research has shown that there is a link between poor health and the outcome of people who deal with discrimination. And as a result, there tends to be an overuse of tobacco and alcohol products if you have increased stress in the workplace, or at least that's what we're trying to prove or disprove at this point. The question is workplace discrimination and stressors associated with tobacco and alcohol abuse for full-time employees? And underneath that, you can see the two hypotheses that we're trying to prove or disprove. So not only are we trying to prove that full-time employees who are victim of workplace discrimination use tobacco and alcohol more, we're also trying to prove that the more discrimination you experience, the higher your stress level, which means that you consume more alcohol and tobacco, and their theory is that we are trying to create a correlation between alcohol and tobacco use and discrimination in the workplace. What we used was to the databases Academic Search Complete, CINAHL Complete, PubMed, ProQuest Central, and iPlumes and NHIS database with full text. Participants were between the age of 18 and 64, residents of the USA. Participants are of all races, educational background, and socioeconomic status, employed in industry, trade, or domestic, and exclusion were unemployed or retired people. Places again that we use are Academic Search Complete, CINHL, PubMed, ProQuest, and iPlumes and NHS with the full text. Keywords were alcohol use, workplace, discrimination, and stress to come up with the articles that we were using for the research. Factors included workplace environment, poor full-time, violence, harassment, drugs addiction, and mental health. And the articles we tried to use were between the year January of 2009 and October of 2019. Right here are made a list of all the exposures that we use to calculate um, statistics of workplace and substance use. And we define the key terms for the population, gaps in the data, and where the gaps come from, and then we try to determine how they impact our understanding of data and how they can be avoided in the future. The statistical analysis is the National Health Interview Survey, as we use to collect and determine data. We use cross-tabulation with work-related harassment and amount of drug consumption, data analysis software iPooms, and a relative risk formula to measure the strength of association between the relationship of workplace discrimination and substance abuse for full-time employees. In this table, you can see the data for smoking and employment status. The blue representing smoking every day, smoking some days, former smokers, or never smoked. We put in alcohol and employment status, and the variables we use are those who are working for pay, working without pay, and those who are unemployed, and the consumption of alcohol. And these tables is a smoking comparison among different races, and this group is African Americans and whites. And you can see the reds is working for pay at jobs and businesses, and smoking either every day, some days, or not at all in both classes. And for the African American, those that are working for pay, you can see are smoke at a higher rate, as well as for white people. The statistics are looking not too much differently for both classes and races. Alcohol consumption is about the same. In this particular comparison, I'm comparing the African American culture to the Latino culture. And as you can see again, the statistics are not that much different. And the variables we use lifetime abstainer, which means not smoking, your former drinker, your current drinker, and your drinking status at the present time. And here is a list of jobs and for our races and the comparison between smoking as a pair, smoking in different job industries. And in this particular graph as well is talk about alcohol consumption for all races. This particular study is for African American males to talk about their smoking and those who went through physical discrimination and emotional discrimination, and to compare statistics. And it seems that the emotional effects of discrimination are at a higher rate than the physical effects of discrimination, and the variable of determining smoking. And also their smoking is about the same for college, the different levels of college, and you can see in this graph that the high school, those with a high school less than a high school education, appear here to have smoked a little more. In conclusion, the data presented by our group was put into the um, data analysis plan assignment um, and was observed from the U.S. National Health Surveys of iPhones.org. And we individually registered. We split up into groups to take different parts of the research to come up with a whole plan for us to either prove or disprove our hypothesis. And in my opinion, based on the research, there is no definite evidence that stress and or discrimination has a direct link to substance abuse among any other races. In theory, stresses from discrimination should lead to increased elevations in alcohol consumption and tobacco smoking, and research has failed to correspond to these predictions consistently. There are some studies that support the theory and some that disagree with the theory, but without substantial conclusive evidence, we would have to reject the hypothesis that there is increased alcohol and tobacco smoking due to job-related stress caused by discrimination.